My first memories as a human being were my father and my mother arguing, physically fighting, and then my dad ultimately beating my mom to a pulp, in that order. That was repeated many times. My older brother, Paul, was way older than me. He was a gang member. And I remember not wanting to be like my dad. He was a hardworking man, he was. Work all day, came home, used to drink. My mom would argue with him about something. Whatever it was, I didn't understand. Point is that I came to the point where I resented my dad. I didn't want to be like him, or like the rest of the Hispanic American men that I saw on my block that would go home after a long, long time at work and not be there for their families. So I saw what my brother was up to. He was up to no good. Yet I admired him because he loved me. He let me know every day. When I was in the 3rd grade, the cops took him away from me. He's been in prison since 1994. I remember in my head thinking and making a decision that I didn't want to be a cop. I didn't want to be a firefighter. I didn't want to be an attorney. I didn't want to be a physician. I didn't want to be a Jesuit priest. I wanted to be a gang member, full-fledged gang member, like my brother Paul. I didn't care that he was sentenced to 50 years with multiple life sentences. I didn't care about that. I didn't understand how low of my mental state was at that time. All I know is that I made the decision that I liked what was going on my block. I fell in love with that. I fell in love with the kids on my block that gave me that handshake, that gave me that hug, that was there for me when I started junior high and I started being targeted because I was from this side of the block by other gangs. That's Paul's brother. Back him up. I fell in love with that. I remember that as a kid. When I started junior high, I made that decision that I didn't want to be just an average gang member. I wanted to surpass my brother. And my first time going to jail was 11 years old. I brought a weapon to school because I didn't want someone to think that I was a punk. And when an older kid from another gang wanted to hurt me, I went and got a gun and I brought it to school. And thank God I was caught. I went to jail. And from that point forward, my life spiraled out of control. Full-fledged gang member. By the time I was 15 years old, I was leadership, part of a clique, part of one of the largest Hispanic street gangs in the world, based out of Los Angeles. A year later, I was tested by other leadership, older guys. I didn't let them down. I participated in heinous crimes in my community. And that led me to being arrested and convicted for multiple shootings. I was sentenced to 60 years with consecutive life terms. Tried as an adult. And I didn't care. I was angry. This was natural, I thought. This is just part of what it is to be Mexican American. By the time I was 17, I was in prison with men, 30-year-old cellmate that was teaching me things that I shouldn't have been taught. That only hardened me. And it's sad because when I look back, I was a soft, delicate kid that all I wanted was my dad and my mom to love me. Yet I never got that. While in prison, there was no rehabilitation programs. As soon as I got to the prison, I was part of a prison gang, which was worse than a street gang. Organized crime in prison is no joke. Maximum security prisons, I know them all too well in California. Unfortunately, California, they like sending their kids to those places. And it took me 20 years for me to have a spiritual awakening. But when it happened, I knew that I had to transform. This is not natural. This is not what God intended me to do. So a couple of years more down the line, I took benefit from the new laws that were enacted. They made it unconstitutional for children to be sentenced to die in prison. For years I prayed, God, if you're real, give me this opportunity. And I was serving you because I'm tired of serving that. Please. It wasn't easy. But as slowly as down the pipeline, as the state started implementing new programs in the prison, I knew how to read because that's what I used to do in the home. That's all I had, a book. So I would read. And that helped me adjust. Taking classes that helped me pick up new coping skills that I didn't have to try to act hard and be this person that I wasn't. It helped me discover that I had created a character and got sucked into this horrible culture that is abnormal. It's not healthy for you. That was just the beginning. Through my process and through my journey of transformation, I realized that everything I had done in the past, all I ever did was hurt my own. I didn't see any white people coming after me, try to kill me. It was my own. People of color. So when I came home, I was ultimately granted opportunity to come home. And when I came home, I thought I was going to be fine. I changed my life. I was no longer a gang member. I thought God was on my side. I'm like, nothing's going to stop me. I'm going to serve him. Yet I hit obstacles. Every step there was obstacles. Well, you're ex-lifer. You have horrible crimes against rival gang members. We're going to place you in South Central. Okay. Place me in the highest crime neighborhoods in Los Angeles in 2024. I didn't think of it too much until I started using public transportation and I started being triggered by people that used to look like me. I used to look like certain people. Bald, tattoos. Triggering these panic attacks, this anxiety, this horrible feeling that if I don't get them, they're going to get me. And I remember that was the same mentality that I had for so long. So luckily for me, I had a good friend that I met in prison that told me, look, bro, you're doing good. You're working. You're in the transitional house. What's wrong? It's hard, bro. It's hard. Parole wants me to do this, wants me to do that, and I'm trying to do that while working, while trying to see my family, trying to meet the requirements that they're giving me, these curfews. I thought I had it under control, that I could do it on my own. And I realized real quick that I couldn't do it on my own. So that was my cry for help. My friend Raul and George, they took me down to Homeboy Industries. I remember Father Greg. The same guy you see here, that's how he was when I was in juvenile hall. And he would come and give us mass. And at that time, I didn't care about mass. I mean, I was born and raised Catholic, but in my mind, that was just cultural stuff. I didn't believe in God. I didn't practice anything. I was in mass talking to the homies and passing kites and figuring out who's gonna give me cookies and who's gonna give me drugs and how we're gonna make knives and pass them to the people that need them. But I remember that what he was doing was a good thing in my community. But I wasn't interested because that's not where I was into. I was not on the same wavelength as him. But when I started my transformation, even then I didn't think of him. But when I came home thinking that I could do it on my own, and I realized that I couldn't, I thought I was smart. I went around looking for resources around the city. I found some here and there, $100, $50 here. I don't know about you guys, but I don't know where you guys live, but Los Angeles, after 24 years, I did not recognize it. Expensive, gentrified areas. Where I grew up was solid Mexican-American community. I came home, it was a solid white community. Gentrification, it came in as well. So when I used to go visit my sisters and my brother, and where my parents are, I remember thinking how so much had changed. It was just so much. It was overwhelming. That's all I could tell you. I don't know how else to explain it. It was overwhelming. On the weekends, I started earning passes to come home to my family. And I saw how I didn't know my neighbors anymore. It was okay. There was no more gangs like trying to kill me or me participating in that stuff. That's a good thing. But I didn't know. Nobody wanted to talk to me. So I just assumed it was. But then I found out that because I was forced to register as a gang member, many of my neighbors were scared of me. And I understand that it makes perfect sense, But that had an effect in my mind. That had an effect that I desired to be part of my community. I desired to make amends. I desired to be a better son, a better brother. Yet the opportunities weren't there. The support from the local and state authorities was not there for me. I was given a check for $200 to come home on a bus, and half of it was gone by the time I hit the bus station in Los Angeles. It was gone. So I remember thinking, are you going to go back to it? No. There's no way. I knew that was gone. I wasn't going to go back to what I used to do. But that was the strongest muscle that I had. So it did cross my mind. But my little muscles told me, nah, that's not worth it. So coming to Homeboy Industries, to come home and to see that nobody was trying to help me, even after 24 years. Coming home to Homeboy Industries is the reason why I'm healthy today, is the reason why I'm emotionally, physically stable today. Why? From the second that I walked in, I'm not promoting anything. I'm just telling you my experience. I walked in there, and I was greeted by people that I knew half of them from jail. And I was like, wow, okay. Therapy. Remember I talked about being in the public transportation, and I started getting triggered by people that weren't doing anything to me. But I didn't understand what was going on to me. I didn't understand why the hypervigilance. I was free now. So the biggest benefit that I get at Homeboy Industries is therapy. I believe that has helped me calm down, understand that I am free, and that I am blessed. Right away, I knew I had to generate more income because it's expensive. Helped me get a second job, Dodger Stadium. Go Dodgers. World champs. There's so many blessings have came since I joined their 18-month program. Instead of just throwing me into the job, the job force, like everybody else did, they put me in classes and job training. And they paid me for that. They started me off with part-time. And little by little, I started just, like, it's okay. It's okay. Having someone that I could trust. My therapist started reconnecting with people that I knew from prison that were trying to do the same, trying to recover from gang addiction. I haven't heard this said too much, but I've heard about substance abuse addictions. I've heard about many addictions, but people don't talk about the gang addiction. That lifestyle is horrible because it brings all those things and it puts it right in front of you. Guns, crime, every level. And it's so addicting. And it's permanent. Blood in, blood out. By the grace of God, I was able to walk away. And that makes it even harder without having a support system. So I stand before you. My name is Brian Sanchez, ex-gang member, criminal recovery, a brother, a son, a community member, and a homeboy. Thank you.
So I get really nervous speaking. So if you could just help me and nobody in here look at me. My name is Anthony, and I too am a proud homeboy. So I grew up in the projects in East LA. The projects, it's government housing. It's a poor area. Growing up there, witnessed a lot of gang and criminal activity. I remember one of my earliest memories there. One of the gang members there, handed me a box of matches, and he asked me to go out and burn the Christmas tree. So in the projects, once we throw out our Christmas trees, they put them in this area called the compound. And so, the Christmas trees pile up and they're super dry, and they catch on fire quickly. But we would light them on fire, and everyone would come out of their house and just watch this huge fire happening. And so anyway, this guy gives me a box of matches. He asked me to light the Christmas trees. I went and did it. And so, of course, everyone comes out. They're watching the fire. Eventually, the fire department shows up. There's no fire for them to put out. It was so dry. It's all ashes. But now we get a light show, so everyone's just hanging around the parking lot or in front of their houses. This happens every year in the projects. When I did that, I was in the first grade, and arson was my first crime. So, growing up in the projects, I grew up without my father. So I followed in my brother's footsteps. When you become a teenager, it's very local for you in East LA to join the local street gang. For me, I was born in those projects, so therefore I joined that gang. My brothers joined the gang. It was very easy for me to just follow in their footsteps, and it was very normal. I didn't think twice about it. Soon after I joined the gang, I was before a judge. And when he read the charges to me and the time that I was facing, I remember what my first thought was, my mom is going to come right now and she's going to fix this. Like, there's no way. Someone made a mistake. The judge, looking at me, he felt that I was not fit to be in his courtroom, in his juvenile court. He said I was a mature adult, and he sent me to adult court. I was 15 years old. Of course, an adult doesn't think my mom's gonna come save me, but he didn't know what my thoughts were. He didn't know, I didn't have a voice. I couldn't tell him what I felt or what I was thinking. He just looked at me and said, you know what, you're a mature adult. You're going to adult court. So off to adult court I went. 2 years later, I was tried by a jury of my peers. I was found guilty, and that judge sentenced me to 32 years to life. Obviously, I didn't complete my life sentence. I'm standing here before you now. But I did do 20 years in prison for a crime I did not commit. When I got to prison, I reached out. I was 17. I reached out to the California Innocence Project. They represented me for a long time. And eventually, they got me home. They got me released. But I'm not fully exonerated. They continue to represent me now. That's a whole story of its own. But when I came home, my transition back into society was very difficult. If you can imagine, 15 to 36 years old, I've never had a job. I don't know what it's like to have any real responsibilities. In prison, I did not further my education. I didn't pick up any skills. With the life sentence, I didn't feel it was necessary. What I was doing in prison was trying to find a way to be happy. I remember talking to my family. They came up there for a family visit, and it was difficult for me to tell them this, but I had the possibility of parole, life with the possibility, but I would have to serve the 32 years first. But I was telling my family, I'm not counting on the board to release me. And my thinking was, I don't want you to think that I'm giving up. This is what I'm telling my mom and my sisters. I don't want you to think that I'm giving up. I'm not. But for the board to release me, I have to come before them and tell them that I have to accept the crime that was committed, and I was not willing to do that. So therefore, they weren't going to let me go home. This person has no remorse for what he did, in their eyes. But I told them, I don't want you to feel that I gave up. What I'm doing is taking control of my life. Because even if it's in prison, I still have to live out the rest of my years. And how am I going to do that? I don't want to be one of these guys that, and I see this a lot in prison, especially with the older homies. You know, they change their lives around. You can see it in the way they talk, the way they walk. They just complete transformation. And they go before this board, and the board just shoots them down, denies them, tells them, I'll see you again in 7 years. And so what happens when they do this, they come back to the yard, and you see these guys, they look broken. They get back into drugs. They look depressed. And I knew I was going to be in prison a long time. Didn't know what I want to do with it, but I know I didn't want to be that. I didn't want to be that person that kept hitting himself against that wall, that board, and them denying me and me coming back broken down. I didn't want to give them that power. And so I chose to find my happiness, find a way to be happy. There was times where you have to find the small jewels in every day. And sometimes it could be something as simple as the dew on the grass. But you find the joy. So coming home, getting a job would have been difficult. Again, no job training, I didn't further my education. I came to Homeboy Industries for the help. What they offer at Homeboy Industries is hope, training, and support for previously gang-involved and formerly incarcerated people like myself, allowing us to redirect our lives and become contributing members of our community. When I joined the program, it's kind of a funny story. So I heard about Homeboy Industries because Father Gregory would come to juvenile hall and do mass. So I was aware of Homeboy Industries. I just wasn't too sure what would happen there of the 18-month program. But one of their first case managers, Pascual Torres, I believe he was the first case manager, he was my counselor and would go visit me at the juvenile camp. When I picked up my case, Pascual Torres stayed in contact with me for the 20 years that I was locked up. He eventually became an attorney, left Homeboy, but still had all the connections, knows Father Gregory very well. So when I came home, he comes to pick me up from my house. He knew I wasn't coming out anywhere, and he gave me a couple weeks to get settled in, but he picked me up and he takes me down to Homeboy. And so I walk in the doors and right into Father Gregory's office. He wasn't there that day, but I was received by 4 of our directors, and they welcomed me home. They were aware of my time. Shirley Torres was one of my other counselors. She's now our co-CEO. And I'm sitting in there in this office, and they offer me a position as a trainee. And I was just afraid to be outside. Usually when someone comes home from prison, they're like, I'm free. I'm going to go out. I want to be out and about, right? For me, that wasn't easy. The last time I was out and about, I was arrested. I was locked up, and I wasn't let go for 20 years. So whenever the door opened, I was just in fear. I didn't want to be outside. But here I am sitting at Homeboy Industries, and they're offering me a position as a trainee. And I tell them, I pretend to have all these other options, and I'm like, I'll consider it. I didn't want to tell them I'm scared to be outside. So Jose, he's part of our leadership, our executive team. He gets up and he's like, all right, Homeboy, we don't do this for everybody. We have a waiting list. So if you're going to consider your options, I suggest you do it quickly. I was like, okay, I think I'm going to consider my options, you know? And so he didn't understand what I was going through. Now when I tell my story, he does. But so I left this meeting, and Pascual Torres, who brought me there, is waiting for me in the Homegrown Cafe. And when I go in there, he's like, how'd it go? I told him it went well. They offered me a position as a trainee. And he's like, well, what did you say? I told him I'd consider it. And so he puts down his utensils because he was eating in the cafe, and he looks at me and he says, you're going to order your meal. You're going to eat, and then you're going to get your ass in there, and you're going to accept. I looked at him and I was like, then I'll have the chilaquiles. When I was done eating, I went back into the lobby, and they were setting up for Dia de los Muertos. And I saw Shirley Torres out there. She was putting up the flowers and the pictures. And I asked her, I said, that position that you offered me, if it's still available, I would like to accept. And she said, yeah, come in. That was a Friday. She told me, come in on Monday and you'll start then. And so as I mentioned, leaving my house was difficult for me. On Monday, when Monday came around, the buses in LA are full of people Monday mornings, any day of the week, I feel. I had to board this bus, and I was full of anxiety. I didn't know if I was going to make it to Homeboy Industries. Luckily, made it on time, but it wasn't easy for me. It was difficult. But my healing started from day one. From day one at Homeboy Industries, I made it there on time. I was like, okay, now I had to go back on this same bus. Next day, did it again, and the following day again. And with time, it just got a little bit easier every time. When we started at Homeboy Industries, the first thing they want us to do is go into the classes. We don't do any job training or any of that until we do some healing. So there was a lot of stuff that was going on in here. And I'm sorry, I know I mentioned earlier that getting a job would have been difficult. They helped me with that as well. But one of the main things they helped me with is my mental health. Coming home, there's a lot of stuff happening. I knew I needed to work on it. The first thing I requested was therapy. In prison, seeking that kind of help is taboo. They don't want us talking to therapists. I mean, imagine what I would say to a therapist. Well, what's causing you this anxiety? Oh, well, they want me to introduce drugs into the prison, or they want me to harm this guy. So, of course, they don't want us sharing these type of things, and so there's a rule. You don't talk to a therapist. And so all the stuff I witnessed and participated in, all this trauma, I just had to deal with it. But coming home, my anxiety was paralyzing at times during my transition. There was one time I was in the classroom when I first started, and I was having an anxiety attack. I was hyperventilating, and I couldn't say a word. So I pulled out my phone, I sent a message for help. My case manager comes up there, she pulls me out the classroom, and she's like, well, what's wrong? And I opened my mouth, but not a sound came out, and she instantly knew there was something wrong. And so she took me to Shirley Torres' office. She was not in there. She just let me sit in there by myself, gather myself. Eventually, I spoke to the therapist of the day. And at Homeboy Industries, we announce in the morning who the therapist of the day is, so we know that there's someone readily available for us if we need someone to talk to. That was one episode. I went through a number of them at Homeboy Industries, a number of them on the streets, some very scary moments where we just had to pull over on the side of the road. Driver didn't know what was going on. I hardly understood what was happening. But with the help that I got there at Homeboy Industries, I was able to manage my anxiety. And that I'm able to stand up here and talk in front of you, I feel is a testimony to the help that they were able to give me, the progress that I've been able to make. Now I graduated the 18-month program in August, and I had left Homeboy Industries one time. I was there for a year, left for a year, and then came back. And by the time the end of my program came, I didn't want to leave. I felt like this is where I belong. Luckily for me, they wanted me to stay too, so it kind of worked out. So I got hired on. I'm now the executive assistant to our co-CEOs there, and I'm learning a lot. I'm learning a lot from our leaders, things that I'm hoping that I'll be able to use in future and other roles. But I'm so grateful to having Homeboy Industries there, 37 years. And I remember talking to Father Gregory on the way down here from New York. and asking him, like, you didn't imagine this, did you? And he said, no. He started, he started a school for us a long time ago. Then it was the jobs, but now Homeboy Industries has wraparound services. I'm happy to, because of the progress that I made, that I can go out now and go places and feel like people don't look at me and see the 20 years in prison. They don't see a convict. They don't see a gang member. I remember I jumped into the elevator this morning with Brian, and we're fishing for our key, and the lady taps it for us. And she looks at me and she says, "You look legit." I was like, hey, I look legit. You can thank Homeboy Industries for that. So I'm proud to be able to go back to my old neighborhood, to the projects, and with the tools and the healing that I did. I go there and talk to the youth, go back to my community there, and I don't go armed with a box of matches like I did when I was a kid. I did it again when I was 15. When I had joined the gang, I did the same thing. I gave a kid a box of matches, and I asked him, "Do you want to light these Christmas trees?" And he said yes. This is it became something like a tradition in the projects, and it happens every year. But now when I come back, I don't come with these matches. I come with it, and I pass on a different kind of flame, a flame that burns with love and hope and compassion. My name is Anthony, and thank you for allowing me to share my story.
So, thank you very much. Can somebody tell me how long, when do we stop? 10 minutes. In 10 minutes? At 5 minutes to 9 or whatever we're at? 8. Yeah, 10 minutes. Okay, so the two of you come on up here. And so we will, as we say in Washington, D.C., we yield the balance of our time to your questions. You come on this.
Does anybody have any? You can stand.
Hi. Hi, thank you guys both for your testimonies. And Father Greg Boyle, I really enjoyed all of your talks, and they're very inspiring. I have a question. If you two specifically could change one thing about the criminal justice system, what would you change and why?
Man, there's so much.
Yeah. One thing.
Treat children like children. Children are going to make mistakes.
Yeah, a lot similar to his. I mean, we were both tried as juveniles. Well, we were tried as adults being juveniles, and I think that's just unjust. Yeah, we didn't belong there. And
All right, thank you guys both for sharing your stories. They're not easy stories. They're, as you guys both said, they're very hard stories. What did it take for you guys to first share what you guys lived through and what you went through? Because I know sharing hard things isn't always the easiest, because it takes a certain amount of vulnerability and trust. So what did it take for you guys to first share your stories?
For me, my whole life I was conditioned. You don't talk about what happened, about nothing. Snitch. Not just the street gang, but at home. You don't trust the cops. You don't trust anybody. Then you go to prison, and then they condition you even worse. And then I come home, and I mean, that has a mental health effect in your mind. You know, I can't trust anybody. You know, so that, for me, that's why I said earlier, therapy for me was life-saving, because I was able to dump all this stuff that I've been carrying for my whole life. And now I can walk around like Bambi and like light, because I'm not this heavy, intense kid anymore. Or a young adult, and you know, all these years that I carried all this trauma, and I thought it was just me, and it was my fault. And that made me very angry. It's not smart to have angry people walking around on drugs and gang members, man, without no help. It's not smart.
So, for me, what helped me change my, what helped me share my story is at Homeboy Industries, we have this big word, kinship. It's huge. I found kinship at Homeboy Industries. So we go into these classes, as I was talking about, and we do healing. Hearing other people's stories, it's so impactful. When I first started, I heard a young man talk about anxiety, and I was like, I know what that's like. Someone else opened up about the violence they witnessed in prison and what that does to them. And I felt, I know what that's like too. And so what happens is we start to lean on each other, and we become part of each other's healing journey. We walk in kinship. Yeah, that's where I was able to find my voice. That's how I was able to heal and share my story. And every time we share it, I mean, thank you for allowing us to share ours. You're now part of our healing journey. So thank you for allowing us to share this space.
Thank you very much.